The morning started like any other at Fort Liberty. Kyle Johnson wiped sweat from his eyes as he ran through his morning drills. The summer heat was already making his uniform stick to his skin. He had just finished his third lap around the track when the sky turned wrong. It wasn't a color change exactly. The blue just got darker and deeper, like someone had added black ink to the sky. Kyle stopped running and stared up. Around him, other soldiers stopped too. A low sound filled the air. It felt more like a vibration than noise, rattling in their chests. "What the hell?" Ryan Powell said, jogging up beside Kyle. His face was red from exercise. "You seeing this?" Kyle opened his mouth to answer but never got the chance. Light exploded across the sky. Not like fireworks. This was different. Wrong. The brightness made everyone cover their eyes. When Kyle lowered his hands, he saw shapes dropping from the darkness above. They were ships, huge ones that blocked out the sun. Their surfaces looked like metal and flesh mixed together. Tubes pulsed with green light. Parts of them seemed to breathe. "Get to the armory," someone shouted. Kyle recognized the voice. It was James Morrison, one of their best officers. "This isn't a drill." Kyle ran. His feet hit the ground hard as he sprinted across the base. Alarms started wailing. The sound mixed with a deep hum from the sky. Other soldiers ran too, all heading for weapons and shelter. The first blast hit the communications tower. The explosion threw Kyle forward. He rolled across the ground, dirt filling his mouth. When he looked up, the tower was gone. Just smoke and twisted metal. "Kyle!" Lisa Wong grabbed his arm and pulled him up. "Come on!" They reached the armory just as the second wave of attacks began. General Ronald Davis was already there, shouting orders. His face was tight with shock, but his voice stayed steady. "Get everything you can carry. We need to evacuate to the underground bunkers." Kyle grabbed an assault rifle and all the ammo he could stuff in his pack. The building shook as more blasts hit. Through the windows, he saw the alien ships firing. Beams of green light. Everywhere they hit, things melted. "The civilians," Kyle said. "What about the town?" "Already hit," Davis said. His jaw clenched. "Most of it's gone." Kyle felt sick. Thousands of people lived near the base. Families, children, gone in minutes. They made it to the entrance of the underground bunkers. People pushed and shoved to get inside. Kyle helped Lisa guide wounded soldiers down the stairs. The bunker smelled like fear and sweat. In the command room, screens showed the invasion from satellite feeds. Cities around the world were burning. The alien ships appeared, everywhere at once. London, Tokyo, New York, Moscow, all under attack. "How is this possible?" someone asked. "Why didn't we see them coming?" "They must have some way to hide their approach," Davis said. "Our best sensors never detected anything unusual." Kyle found himself sitting next to a woman he didn't recognize. She had papers spread across a table, charts and photos of artifacts. He noticed her hands shaking as she stared at the screens. "I tried to warn them," she said softly. "The artifacts. They talked about visitors. I thought they were just myths." "Dr. Sarah Martinez," she introduced herself. "I'm an archaeologist. I work with the Pentagon sometimes. I've been studying these." She pointed to photos of carved stones and old scrolls. "The ancients wrote about sky demons," she continued. "They described ships that could destroy mountains. I thought it was just storytelling." The bunker rocked. Dust fell from the ceiling. On the screens they watched as the alien ships positioned themselves over major cities. Long tubes extended from the ship's undersides. They touched down like massive straws. "What are they doing?" Kyle asked. No one answered for a long moment. Then they saw it. The tubes began glowing. Water from oceans started rising up the tubes, not slowly, in massive columns that reached the ships. "They're stealing our water," Lisa said. "Not just water," Dr. Martinez said. "Look at the molecular analysis. They're taking everything. Minerals, organic material. They're harvesting." Kyle watched in horror as beaches became deserts. Lakes disappeared. Rivers ran dry. The alien ships were draining Earth like a giant straw drains a drink. Days blurred together in the bunker. They had emergency supplies, but nothing could prepare them for the world outside. Every time someone went up to scout, they came back with worse news. "The air's changing," Ryan reported. "It smells different. Chemical." Kyle organized supply runs. Small groups would sneak out for food and medicine. The alien ships had stopped the major attacks. Now they just sat there harvesting. But they left behind sentinels. Smaller ships patrolled the skies. They hunted any humans they spotted. One night, Kyle found Dr. Martinez awake, still studying her papers. She had translated more of the ancient texts. "There's something here," she said, "about a weapon. They called it the Sword of Ages. It was supposed to be a gift, protection against sky demons." "Where is it?" Kyle asked. "Hidden. In the desert. The Gobi Desert. According to this, it's buried in ruins older than Egypt." General Davis overheard them. He sat down at the table. His hair had turned grayer in just a few weeks. "A weapon that can fight them?" he asked. Dr. Martinez nodded. "The texts say it was created by beings who came before, left here in case humanity needed it." "Do you believe it's real?" Davis asked Kyle. Kyle looked at the general, at the other survivors in the bunker, at the screen showing their dying world. "I believe we have to try." That was how the mission began. Kyle volunteered. James Morrison insisted on joining. Lisa Wong wouldn't let them go without medical support. Ryan Powell wanted revenge for his family. They spent 2 days preparing. The route to the Gobi Desert meant crossing an ocean now controlled by alien harvesters. But they found an old military submarine in the naval base nearby. It hadn't been hit because it was underground. For repairs. "We launch tonight," Davis said. "The weather satellites show a storm coming. Maybe it will hide you." Kyle packed light. Food, water, weapons, and Dr. Martinez's translations. She gave him a small device that would help navigate the ancient ruins. "You find this weapon," she said. "You bring it back. This might be our only chance." The night was dark. Clouds covered the sky. Kyle and his team slipped out of the bunker. They could hear the alien ships humming in the distance, see their lights through the fog. The submarine waited at the dock. Its captain, an old man named Pete Anderson, had kept it running during the invasion. "Been a sailor 40 years, he said. "Never thought I'd be part of saving the world." As they boarded, Kyle took one last look at what remained of Fort Liberty. Crater and rubble. The American flag still flew, torn and dirty, but still there. "Let's go," James said softly. The submarine submerged. The deep ocean was quiet compared to the chaos above. For the first time in weeks, Kyle couldn't hear the alien ships, couldn't see destruction. But he knew what waited for them: a journey across a poisoned ocean, ancient ruins that might hold their salvation, and aliens that would kill to stop them. Kyle checked his rifle one more time. The future of humanity rode with them now. 4 soldiers and a captain on a submarine, going to find a myth that might be their only hope. The submarine moved silently through the dark water. Above them, Earth was being eaten alive. Below them, somewhere in the deep, more alien harvesters might be waiting. Kyle closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new horrors, but also possibly their first real chance to fight back. The war for Earth had truly begun. The submarine moved through dark water for 3 days. Kyle spent most of his time in the small crew quarters, studying Dr. Martinez's notes. The ancient texts were translated onto waterproof paper. Kyle traced his finger over the symbols and their meanings. "Listen to this," he told James one morning. "The ancients called the visitors star wanderers. They came every 1,000 years, sometimes to help, sometimes to take." James was cleaning his rifle for the 10th time. "You really think this weapon exists? Do you have a better idea?" Kyle asked. James just shook his head and went back to his gun. On the 4th day, Pete Anderson got their attention. His face was worried as he came down from the helm. "We got company," Pete said. "Something big on sonar, about 2 miles down." They gathered around the sonar screen. A huge shape showed underneath them. It moved slowly, like a whale, but much bigger. "It's following us," Lisa said. "Alien harvester?" Ryan asked. Pete shook his head. "Different. I've been tracking these things. The harvesters make sounds. This one's quiet." Kyle stared at the screen. "As long as it doesn't come up, we keep going." 3 hours later, they were still being followed. The shape stayed deep. It didn't try to catch them, just followed like a shadow. "I don't like this," James said. "It's watching us." Kyle agreed, but what could they do? They had to reach the coast of China. After that, overland to Mongolia and the Gobi Desert, thousands of miles through alien-controlled territory. That night, Kyle dreamed of green lights and burning cities. He woke up sweating. The submarine was perfectly quiet except for the soft hum of engines. Lisa was sitting nearby reading her medical manual. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Not much," Kyle admitted. "Keep thinking about what we're trying to do. Find a weapon that might not exist to fight aliens we don't understand." Lisa closed her book. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about how everything happens for a reason. Maybe this is why you became a soldier. To save the world?" Kyle laughed weakly. "To try," Lisa said. "That's all anyone can do." The next morning, Pete called them to the helm. "We're close to the Chinese coast, but there's a problem." Through the periscope, they could see why. The coastline was covered with what looked like pink coral. But as they watched, the coral moved. It breathed. "Another harvesting station," Pete said. "They're growing something on the shore." "Can we go around?" Kyle asked. "Maybe. But it would take us way off course." And Pete showed them the sonar again. "Our deep friend is still with us." "I say we risk it," James said. "We can't waste time going around." "We surface at night," Kyle decided. "Quick and quiet." They waited for darkness. The submarine rose slowly. Water dripped as they opened the hatch. The night air smelled wrong, chemical and sweet at the same time. Kyle was first out. The dock they approached was half crushed but usable. They could see the pink coral growing over buildings nearby. It pulsed with its own light. 20 minutes. "To load supplies," Kyle whispered. "Then we move inland." They had to hide the submarine somewhere. Pete pointed to a collapsed hangar. "If I can get her in there, maybe they won't spot her." 2 hours later, they were moving through what used to be Shanghai. The city was a maze of destruction and alien growth. Buildings were covered with the pink coral. Roads were cracked and overgrown with blue vines. Ryan led the way. His night vision gear made him their best scout. He held up his hand suddenly, signaling stop. "Patrol," he whispered. They pressed against a ruined wall. Through gaps. In the debris, they saw them. 3 alien creatures walking down the street. They were tall and thin with 4 arms. Their skin looked like metal and flesh mixed together. The creatures stopped. One of them turned toward their hiding place. It sniffed the air. Kyle held his breath. His hand tightened on his rifle. If they were discovered now, the creature took a step toward them, then another. Its eyes glowed green in the darkness. A loud crash came from down the street. The creatures spun around. Something large had fallen from a building. The aliens moved to investigate. "Go," Kyle hissed. They ran across the street and into an alley. Behind them, they could hear the aliens making sounds like metal scraping metal. "That was close," Lisa panted. "Too close," James agreed. "We need better intel on their patrols." They found shelter in an old subway station. The tunnels were dark and damp, but they were hidden from the alien ships above. Kyle spread out Dr. Martinez's maps. They showed the route to the Gobi Desert, thousands of miles through infected land. "Look at this," Ryan said. He pointed to a section of the map. "These supply caches. The Pentagon marked safe zones before the invasion. Might still have fuel and food." "It's a risk," James said, "but we need supplies." They spent 2 days moving through the subway tunnels. At night, they surfaced to check their position. The sky was always dark now. The alien ships blocked out the stars. On the 3rd day, they found the first cache. It was in a reinforced bunker under a hospital. The heavy door took an hour to open. Inside they found weapons, food, medicine, and something unexpected. A computer terminal that still worked. "There are survivors," Lisa said, reading messages on the screen. "Resistance groups, they're using old radio frequencies to communicate." Kyle typed a message. Within minutes, they got a response. "This is Delta Team. Who is this?" "Fort Liberty survivors," Kyle typed. "Heading to Mongolia, looking for others." "Mongolia? The aliens have heavy presence there. Why go there?" Kyle hesitated, then typed, "Ancient weapon, possible defense against invaders." There was a long pause, then, "We know about that. Others are looking too. Gobi Desert ruins. Be careful. Aliens are searching for something there also." Kyle felt cold. The aliens knew about the weapon. They were looking for it too. "We need to move faster," he told the team. The next part of their journey took them through mountains. The landscape had changed. Forests were dying. Rivers ran strange colors. Animals acted wrong. They saw a dog one night. It looked normal from far away. But when it got close, they saw its eyes were solid green. Its fur moved like it was alive. "Don't shoot," Kyle said. "Just back away slowly." The dog watched them leave. It didn't attack, just watched with those wrong eyes. They made it to an old military base, empty but intact. In the armory they found something useful. A map case with detailed topographical charts. Recent ones that showed the area around the Gobi Desert ruins. "This wasn't here when I checked those artifacts," Lisa said. "Someone updated this map recently." Kyle studied the charts. Red circles marked dangerous areas. Blue marks showed possible routes. And at the center, in the heart of the Gobi Desert, was a black X. "The ruins," he said. "Someone else found them." That night, Kyle woke up to find Lisa on watch. She was looking at the stars through a gap in the roof. "We're being followed again," she said softly. Kyle came to look. In the distance, on a hill, he saw a shape. It was too dark to make out clearly, but it was large and it didn't move. "Maybe it's watching the base," Kyle suggested. "Maybe," Lisa said. "Or maybe it's been watching us the whole time." The next morning, they prepared to leave. They had vehicles now, old Jeeps they found in the garage. Fuel was limited but better than walking. James was loading supplies when he froze. "Everyone, be very quiet." They listened. Through the morning air came a sound. The same scraping metal they'd heard in Shanghai. It was getting closer. "Into the vehicles," Kyle ordered. "Now!" They scrambled for the Jeeps. The engines started rough. Kyle drove the lead vehicle, heart pounding as the sound got louder. They burst through the gate as 3 alien creatures appeared from the trees. The creatures made angry sounds and gave chase, but they were on foot and the Jeeps were fast. "They're falling back," Ryan reported from the rear window. Kyle didn't slow down. He pushed the Jeep faster. They had to reach the desert. Had to find the weapon before the aliens did. The landscape blurred past. They drove all day, stopping only for fuel and quick checks. By sunset, they could see the edge of the desert ahead. The Gobi Desert stretched before them like an ocean of sand. Somewhere in that vast emptiness lay ruins that might save their world. Kyle stopped the Jeep at the desert's edge. The others pulled up beside him. They checked their supplies one last time. Water, food, weapons, and Dr. Martinez's instructions. "Once we enter," Kyle said, "there's no quick way out. No place to hide if they find us." James nodded. "We knew what we signed up for." Lisa checked her medical kit. "I'm ready." Ryan tested his weapons. "Let's find this sword." Kyle took one last look at the world behind them, the world being eaten by aliens. Then he turned the Jeep toward the desert. The ancient weapon waited somewhere ahead. So did their enemies. But they had no choice. Earth's survival depended on them. The Jeeps moved into the desert as the sun set. Behind them, the scraped metal sound came again from the trees. Something was still following them, watching, waiting. Their real journey was just beginning. The desert sand was hot even at night. It found its way into everything: weapons, food, clothes. The jeeps struggled through deep drifts that appeared suddenly like traps. 3 days into the Gobi Desert, they found the first marker. It was a stone pillar covered in symbols. Dr. Martinez's notes showed a perfect match. "We're close," Kyle said, running his hand over the carved stone. "The texts say 3 pillars form a triangle. The ruins are in the center." That afternoon they found the second pillar. The third proved harder to locate. A sandstorm forced them to shelter in the lee of a dune for 6 hours. When the wind died, everything looked different. "My compass is wrong," James reported, "and the GPS isn't working anymore." The ancients wrote about this, Kyle remembered from the notes. They said the land protects the weapon. Technology fails near the ruins. They used the old methods, star navigation and the angles from the 2 pillars they'd found. It took another full day before Ryan spotted the third marker. The triangle formed a rough shape pointing deeper into the desert. At sunset, they saw what they were looking for. Rock formations rose from the sand like broken teeth. Between them, half-buried walls and archways appeared from the dunes. "We camp here," Kyle decided. "First light, we explore the ruins." That night was quiet. Too quiet. Lisa did first watch. At midnight, she woke Kyle. "Look at the sky," she whispered. Above them, the darkness pulsed with green lights. Not stars. The alien ships were scanning the desert. Their search beams swept back and forth across the sand. "They know we're here," Kyle said. "Or they're looking for the ruins too," Lisa suggested. "Either way, we need to move fast tomorrow." Morning came with a different problem. Their vehicles wouldn't start. The engines were dead like the GPS. "Leave them," Kyle ordered. "We go on foot." They packed light, just weapons, water, and the navigation device Dr. Martinez had given Kyle. The ruins were a mile away across the sand. Up close, the stone structures were massive. Carved blocks bigger than cars fit together perfectly. The walls disappeared into the sand below. This place had been buried for thousands of years. "There should be an entrance," Kyle said, checking the navigation device. It showed a pattern to follow. A specific path through the ruins. They walked the pattern. Left turn straight for 20 steps, right turn straight for 15 steps. At the end, Kyle found a stone door. Symbols covered it. The same symbols from the navigation device. James put his shoulder to the door. It didn't budge. "Wait," Lisa said. She studied the symbols. "These look like a combination lock." Dr. Martinez's notes had sequences. Kyle found the page. He traced the symbol pattern with his finger. The door began to glow faintly. There was a grinding sound. Stone scraped on stone. The door moved inward, revealing darkness. They switched on flashlights. The beam showed a corridor sloping down. The walls were smooth, like polished metal, but made of stone. Strange pipes ran along the ceiling. They'd been dry for centuries. "Here goes nothing," Ryan said. The corridor led deep underground. After 50 steps, they reached a large chamber. Their lights revealed amazing things. Vehicles that looked like aircraft but worked differently. Screens built into walls. Equipment they couldn't identify. This technology. Lisa touched a strange console. "It's advanced. More advanced than anything we have." "The Star Wanderers," Kyle said. "This must be their work." A side passage caught their attention. The navigation device pointed that way. They followed it down another corridor. This one had markings on the walls, pictures showing the same tall aliens they'd seen in cities. But these images were different. These aliens weren't destroying. They were building, teaching. "I think we had the wrong idea," James said. "Not all the visitors were bad, but the ones attacking us are," Kyle reminded him. The passage opened into another chamber. This one was different. In the center stood a pedestal made of black stone. Above it, suspended in the air by some invisible force, floated a sword. The weapon wasn't large, maybe 3 feet long with a simple design, but it glowed with inner light. Blue energy ran through patterns on the blade like veins. Kyle approached slowly. The sword hung perfectly still in the air. As he got closer, he felt something, a tingling in his mind, like the weapon was aware of him. The text said only the worthy can claim it, Lisa said softly. Kyle reached for the sword. His fingers touched metal that felt warm. The weapon dropped into his hand. Instantly, images flooded Kyle's mind. He saw ancient times, beings working together to build and learn. Then he saw destruction, space filled with massive ships consuming worlds. The sword being created as protection against the devourers. Kyle gasped as the visions ended. The sword felt different now. Lighter. Like it was part of his arm. "Kyle?" James asked. "You okay?" "I saw things," Kyle said. "The weapon's history, the Varkal Empire. That's what they call themselves. They've destroyed hundreds of worlds. Can you use it?" Lisa asked. "How does it work?" Kyle lifted the sword. He didn't know how, but he understood. The weapon was connected to him now. He thought about light, and the sword blazed brighter. He imagined a shield, and blue energy formed around his left arm. "It responds to thought," Kyle explained. "The makers designed it to bond with a user to amplify their will." Ryan was excited. "Can you fight the aliens with it now?" "I think so, but..." A loud crash echoed through the ruins. Dust fell from the ceiling. Another crash, closer. "They found us," James said, running back to the entrance passage. Kyle followed, the sword still glowing in his hand. They reached the main chamber as a third crash shook the building. Part of the ceiling collapsed. Through the hole dropped two alien creatures. These were different from the patrols they'd seen. Bigger. Their metal flesh skin was thicker. They carried weapons that looked like staffs with energy crackling at the tips. "The Reavers," Kyle said, recognizing them from his vision. "They're hunters." "We can't fight those things," Ryan said, raising his rifle anyway. One of the Reavers pointed, its weapon. Lightning shot across the chamber. Ryan dove aside. The energy burst left a smoking hole in the floor. Kyle acted on instinct. He raised the sword. Blue light formed a barrier. The next energy blast hit the shield and bounced away harmlessly. "I can hold them," Kyle shouted. "You guys run." "No way," James said. "We fight together." The battle was chaos. The Reavers were fast and strong. Their weapons could cut through stone. James and Ryan fired bullets that barely dented their armor. Lisa tried to help Kyle maintain the shield while also shooting. Kyle discovered he could do more than defend. He swung the sword and energy sliced through the air. One Reaver dodged, but the attack cut its weapon in half. The creature looked surprised. They didn't expect the sword to work, Kyle realized. The second Reaver jumped at Lisa. Kyle moved faster than he thought possible. He appeared between them, the sword cutting the alien staff in two. Energy exploded, throwing them all backward. Kyle hit the wall hard. His ears rang. Through blurry vision, he saw James and Ryan still fighting. The ceiling was collapsing faster. More crashes came from outside. "We need to go." Lisa pulled Kyle up. "The whole place is coming down." They ran through passages as the ancient structure fell apart. The Reavers chased them, but debris kept getting in their way. Kyle led the team, somehow knowing which way to go. The sword was guiding him. They burst from a side exit just as the main building collapsed. Sand and stone filled the air. When it cleared, the entrance was buried under tons of rubble. "The Reavers?" Ryan asked. "Trapped," James said. "For now." But their problems weren't over. Kyle looked up to see alien ships hovering above the ruins. Searchlights swept toward their position. "Run!" Kyle commanded. They scattered across the desert. The ships opened fire, green beams turning sand to glass. Kyle could feel the sword's power. He could make shields, but moving and protecting everyone was hard. A blast came close. Kyle raised the sword without thinking. Energy shot from the blade into the sky. It hit one of the ships. The alien craft spun wildly and crashed into the sand. "Did you see that?" Ryan yelled with joy. "Keep running." Kyle answered. They reached their abandoned jeeps, still dead from the ruins' effect. But Kyle had an idea. He touched the sword to a jeep's engine. Blue light flowed into the machine. The engine roared to life. "Get in!" James shouted. Kyle powered up all 3 vehicles. They split into different directions to confuse their pursuers. Kyle drove with Lisa while James and Ryan took separate routes. The alien ships chased them across the desert. Kyle discovered he could fire energy bolts while driving. His aim was terrible, but it kept the ships at a distance. As dawn broke, they reached the edge of the Gobi Desert. The ships stopped following. Maybe they had orders not to pursue too far, or maybe they had to report Kyle's new weapon. The team regrouped at a rocky outcrop. Everyone was alive but exhausted. "We did it," Lisa said. "We got the sword." "Now comes the hard part," James pointed out. "Getting home." Kyle looked at the glowing weapon in his hand. He could feel its power. Ancient knowledge whispered at the edges of his mind. Battle skills and tactics used by the sword's creators against the Varkul Empire. "We go home," Kyle agreed. "But we're not the same people who left. We have a chance now, a real chance to fight back." The morning sun rose over the desert. The sword's blue light mixed with golden dawn. Kyle stood taller, feeling the weight of Earth's hope in his hand. Their journey back would be dangerous. The Varkul know about the sword now. They would hunt Kyle with everything they had. But for the first time since the invasion began, humanity had a weapon that could hurt their enemies. The war for Earth had changed. Kyle and his team started the long journey home, carrying with them the first real hope since the ships appeared in the sky. Above them, an alien patrol ship watched from the clouds. It didn't attack, just observed and sent a signal to its masters. The message was simple. The human had claimed the weapon. The real battle was about to begin. Kyle struggled to sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, the sword showed him things. Fighting techniques from warriors who lived thousands of years ago. Different alien species that had fought the Varkul Empire. Ways to use the weapon he hadn't discovered yet. "You need rest," Lisa said, sitting beside him as they camped in a cave. "You've been training nonstop for 2 days." "I can't control it properly," Kyle admitted. He held up the sword. "Sometimes it does what I want. Sometimes it explodes with power I can't stop." James cleaned his rifle nearby. "You almost took my head off this morning." "Sorry about that," Kyle said again. He'd been practicing energy blasts when one went wild. The burst had missed James by inches. "We need to send word back to Earth," Ryan said. "Tell them we found the weapon." "How?" James asked. "Our radios don't work this far out." Kyle stood and walked to the cave entrance. Dawn was just beginning. "I've been thinking about that. The sword has shown me things. The ancients had communication devices, technology that works even when others fail. They'd been moving carefully back toward the coast. But now Kyle hesitated. Should they go home and help Earth's remaining resistance, or continue to master the sword first? That morning they got their answer. An alien scout ship appeared on the horizon. It wasn't attacking, just following at a distance. "They're watching us," Lisa said. "Studying the sword," James added. "Learning what it can do." Kyle made a decision. "We fight. Right here. I need to test this weapon properly." The team set up positions around their cave. The scout ship drew closer. It was small, about the size of a helicopter. Kyle stepped into the open. The ship stopped 200 yards away. It hovered silently. Kyle raised the sword and focused his thoughts. Energy gathered along the blade. "I'll try to disable it," Kyle shouted to his team. "Not destroy." The ship's weapons charged up. Kyle struck first. A bolt of blue energy shot across the desert. It hit the scout ship's underside. The alien craft tilted but didn't crash. It fired back. Green lightning carved through the air. Kyle raised a shield. The attack exploded against blue light. The force pushed him back, but he stayed standing. The ship tried to retreat. Kyle discovered he could leap huge distances with the sword's power. He jumped and soared through the air. The sword blazed as he brought it down on the ship's engine. The alien craft spun down and crashed into the sand. Kyle landed beside it. His heart raced. He'd brought down an alien ship without help. The team reached him quickly. "Check inside," Kyle said. "But be careful." James and Ryan approached the smoking wreckage. Through a crack in the hull, they saw movement. An alien pilot, stunned but alive. "We could learn from it," Lisa suggested. "Question it." "No," Kyle said. His voice was firm. The sword filled him with certainty. "These scouts always carry trackers. The Varkul will find this crash. Soon." They moved out fast, but Kyle felt different now. The power flowed easier, his movements were sharper. The sword was training him even while he used it. 2 days later, they encountered humans again. A small resistance group had set up in the mountains. The leader was an ex-soldier named Jack Morgan. His people looked thin and tired. "We've been raiding alien supply runs," Jack explained. "Small attacks, hit and run." "How much damage?" Kyle asked. "Not much," Jack admitted. "Their armor is too strong, their weapons too powerful." Kyle drew the sword. Blue light filled the cave where they met. Hope flickered in the survivor's eyes. "Show me your attack plans," Kyle said. That night, Kyle learned the real situation on Earth. Jack's radio crackled with reports from other resistance cells. The Varkul were building massive harvesters in every major city. They were draining Earth faster. "We need to hit them harder," Jack said. "But without more weapons." "You have one," Kyle said. He looked at his team. They'd been through so much already. "I'm staying to help these people. You three head to the coast. Find a way to contact General Davis." "We don't split up," James said immediately. "We have to," Kyle argued. "The resistance needs training, needs hope, and Earth needs to know about the sword." Lisa touched his arm. "Then we all stay for a while. Train these people. Then we go together." Kyle accepted. For the next week, he worked with Jack's fighters. He couldn't give them the sword's power, but he could teach them better tactics, show them alien weak points he'd learned from the weapon's visions. The first, real test came when an alien harvester moved through a nearby valley. It was the size of a skyscraper, floating on green light. Tubes extended from its base, sucking up everything. "Yesterday we would have hidden," Jack said as they watched from the hills. "Today we fight." Kyle had a plan. The harvester had weak points, spots where the armor was thinner for the tubes to extend. "Get your people into position," he told Jack. "When I attack, you follow up." The assault began at sunset. Kyle led the charge, running down the hillside faster than human speed. The harvester's defenses activated. Small drone ships swarmed out to meet him. But Kyle had learned. He spun the sword in complex patterns. Energy shields formed and moved with him. Drone attacks bounced away harmlessly. He reached the giant machine and began climbing its side. The resistance fighters opened fire from the hills. They aimed for the spots Kyle had marked. Weak joints, power conduits, small but important targets. Kyle reached the harvester's main power core. The sword showed him exactly where to strike. He gathered all the energy he could and plunged the blade deep into the alien metal. The explosion threw him clear. He hit the ground hard while the harvester's systems failed. The massive machine stopped moving, its lights went out, it began to fall. "Run!" Jack shouted to his people. "Get clear!" The harvester crashed into the valley floor. The impact shook the ground for miles. Alien ships in the distance turned toward the destruction. Kyle and the resistance fighters scattered. They'd planned escape routes. As they regrouped later, Kyle felt pride for the first time since the invasion began. "We hurt them," Jack said with amazement. "We actually hurt them." But Kyle knew this was just the beginning. The sword's power was growing. He could do more now, jump higher, move faster, create bigger shields. But it was also changing him. He thought differently, moved differently. "We need to be careful," Lisa warned after examining him. "The sword is altering your body, making you stronger but also different." "Different how?" James asked. "His reflexes are twice as fast as normal. His heart rate stays calm even during battle. It's like the sword is preparing him for bigger fights." Kyle practiced every day. The resistance fighters watched in awe as he fought invisible enemies, learning techniques from long-dead warriors. He could now fire energy blasts that curved around obstacles, create shields strong enough to stop tank shells. News spread quickly among the resistance groups. Stories of the human with the glowing sword, the one who could destroy alien machines. Groups began moving toward the mountains to see if it was true. 3 weeks after finding the sword, Kyle faced his biggest challenge yet. A Varkul warship arrived in the region. It was hunting him specifically. The ship broadcast a message, in broken English. "Human with stolen weapon, surrender now." "They know about me," Kyle said. "They're scared." "Scared things are dangerous," Ryan pointed out. The warship was massive, 10 times bigger than a harvester. It carried hundreds of reavers and smaller attack craft. It positioned itself over the mountains and began systematic sweeps. "We can't fight that," Jack said. "It's too big." But Kyle had been studying alien technology through the sword's visions. He knew their ships had command centers, nerve systems that controlled everything. "I'm going up there," Kyle announced. "How?" Lisa asked. "It's thousands of feet up." "I've been thinking about that." Kyle held the sword high. Energy swirled around him. "The ancient warriors could fly, short distances, if I can master that." He spent days practicing. Small jumps became big ones became gliding leaps. Finally, he could propel himself through the air with controlled bursts of energy. The attack came at night. Kyle launched himself from the highest peak. Blue light trailed behind him as he soared toward the warship. The vessel's defenses activated. Energy weapons fired. Kyle had learned to absorb some enemy attacks. The sword could convert the energy for his use. He dodged some blasts and absorbed others, using the power to fly higher. He landed hard on the ship's hull. Immediately, reavers swarmed from hatches. Kyle fought with everything he'd learned: spinning attacks, energy waves, quick strikes that exploited alien weak points. But there were too many. For every reaver he defeated, 2 more appeared. His stamina was running out despite the sword's power. Inside the ship, something changed. Kyle felt the vessel turning. Through his connection to the sword, he sensed the ship's systems. It wasn't preparing to attack. It was trying to jump into space, to escape. Kyle made a desperate decision. He found what he sought: a massive power conduit running through the ship's outer hull. He raised the sword and channeled every bit of energy he had. The blast tore through the conduit. It caused a chain reaction through the ship's systems. Explosions began deep in the vessel's core. Kyle fell as the ship started to break apart. He was too high and too tired to control his descent. The ground rushed up at deadly speed. Just before impact, Kyle felt the sword take control. Energy formed beneath him. He hit the ground hard, but not fatally. He rolled and came to rest in a crater of his own making. Above him, the Varkul War ship fell burning from the sky. It crashed 10 miles away in a fireball visible for 100 miles. Kyle lay still for a long time. Every muscle ached, but he could feel the sword repairing his body, making him stronger again. James found him. "First, I thought you were dead." "No," Kyle said. He stood up. The sword glowed softly in his hand. "I'm getting stronger. We're getting stronger." The resistance fighters watched in amazement as the burning wreckage of the warship lit up the sky. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had destroyed one of the Varkul's major vessels. Kyle looked at the faces around him. Hope had replaced fear. They believed they could win now. "What's next?" Jack asked. Kyle studied the sword. Its power hummed through him. "We take the fight to them, no more hiding, no more running." In the distance, more alien ships approached to investigate the crash. But Kyle wasn't afraid anymore. He understood the sword now, understood its purpose. The tide of war was beginning to turn. Earth's champion had found his weapon. Now it was time to show the invaders what humanity could do when given a fighting chance. News of the warship's destruction spread across Earth. Resistance cells everywhere began coordinated attacks. The Varkul Empire responded by moving their command ship from orbit. It descended to hover over the Pacific Ocean. A fortress in the sky the size of a city. Kyle knew this was it, the final battle that would decide Earth's fate. We have to hit that command ship, Kyle told the gathered resistance leaders. They met in an abandoned military base. The Varkul draw power from it, destroy it, and their operation on Earth falls apart. How do we get there? Jack asked. That ship has thousands of defenders. Kyle smiled. He'd been working on something new. I can create portals, short-range teleportation using the sword's power. We'll move our entire fighting force to the coast. 3 days later, Kyle stood on the Chinese shore. Behind him were 500 human fighters, the best from resistance groups worldwide. They carried stolen alien weapons and whatever Earth tech they could salvage. The command ship hung 20 miles offshore. Green energy rained down from it like an inverse waterfall. The ocean was being drained into massive storage tanks in the ship's belly. Remember the plan? General Davis broadcasted through short-range radio. He'd joined them from the underground bunkers. Kyle opens a path. Hit teams follow. Main force targets the power cores. Kyle focused on the sword. He'd practiced this technique for weeks. Blue energy formed in a circle before him. The portal shimmered into existence. Through it, they could see the command ship's hull. Go, Kyle shouted. The first strike team charged through. James led them, weapons trained on emerging reavers. Kyle held the portal open as team after team passed through. The battle began immediately. Human and alien weapons light up the morning sky. Kyle was last through the portal. He closed it behind him just as a massive energy blast tried to follow. The ship's surface was chaos. Resistance fighters used the stolen alien weapons to deadly effect. Kyle saw his training pay off. The fighters aimed for weak points, moved as units, used cover properly, but the ship fought back. Reaver squads poured from every access hatch. Defense systems activated. Green energy beams sliced through the air. The core, Ryan shouted over the noise. We need to reach the power core. Kyle led the way. He'd studied ship layouts through the sword's visions. The command ship followed familiar Varkul design. The main core was at the center. Protected by layers of armor and guardians, they fought through corridors that shifted and changed. The ship's internal defenses tried to confuse them. Holographic walls, direction shifts. But Kyle had the sword. It cut through illusions and guided them true. The first barrier was a chamber filled with security drones. Small floating machines with cutting lasers. Kyle scattered them with an energy blast. The team pushed forward. The second barrier was worse. Bioweapons, creatures grown specifically to kill intruders. They looked like scorpions the size of cars. Armor-plated and fast. Lisa, Kyle called. Medical expertise. Lisa studied the creatures quickly. They're protected against energy weapons, but their joints are vulnerable. The fighters adapted. Bullets to the joints, grenades under their bellies, hand-to-hand combat where necessary. Kyle's sword cut through their armor like paper. They lost people, good fighters who'd survived months of resistance work. Kyle felt each death. The sword showed him their last moments, their sacrifices. Keep moving, James ordered. His face was grim. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye. The third barrier was the bridge. A massive room filled with command consoles, and at the center, floating in a tank of green fluid, was the Varkul Emperor. It wasn't what Kyle expected. The Emperor was old, ancient. Parts of its body were mechanical. Parts were organic. It had lived for thousands of years, consuming worlds, to extend its life. Human. The Emperor's voice filled their minds. You found the sword of the Makers. You believe it can defeat me. Kyle stepped forward. The sword blazed with power. The Makers created it to stop you. You've killed too many worlds. The Emperor's tank rose from the floor. The Makers are gone. Their protection is useless. Join me, human. Together we can rule. No, Kyle said simply. The battle for Earth's future began. The Emperor unleashed powers Kyle had never seen. Dark energy that ate light, gravity wells that crushed matter, temporal distortions that aged everything they touched. Kyle countered with the sword. Blue light fought green darkness. The blade created zones of normal time around his allies, shields that held against impossible forces. The resistance fighters couldn't get close to the Emperor. His powers were too strong. They focused on the room instead, destroying consoles, attacking the power feeds that connected to the Emperor's tank. Kyle realized the truth. The command ship was an extension of the Emperor himself. It grew from his will, fed from his power. To defeat the ship, he had to defeat the being inside. The Emperor read his thoughts. Yes, human, face me alone. Your friends will only die. Kyle turned to his team. James was reloading. Ryan was helping wounded fighters. Lisa was treating burns from energy weapons. New plan, Kyle announced. Everyone out. I face the Emperor alone. Not happening, James said immediately. We don't abandon our own, Ryan added. Lisa simply shook her head. Kyle understood. These were true warriors. They wouldn't run from the final fight. Then we end this together, Kyle said. The Emperor unleashed his full power. The room warped. Reality itself bent, but Kyle had learned something important. The sword wasn't just a weapon. It was a connection to the Maker's will, to their determination to preserve life. Kyle didn't fight alone. He fought with the memories of everyone who'd wielded the sword before. Ancient warriors from a dozen species, all who had stood against the Varkul Empire. Blue energy filled the room. Kyle moved faster than thought. The sword multiplied in his hands. Dozens of energy blades appeared. He was everywhere at once. The Emperor tried to absorb the power, tried to turn it against Kyle, but the sword had been designed for this exact purpose. It couldn't be corrupted. Kyle saw an opening. The Emperor's tank had to process the absorbed energy somewhere. He'd seen the pattern in his visions. There was always a vulnerable moment during power cycling. Cover me, Kyle shouted. His team understood. They poured everything into the Emperor's defenses, buying Kyle precious seconds. Kyle grabbed the sword with both hands. He gathered every bit of power he could channel. The blade sang with ancient purpose. This is for Earth, Kyle roared. He struck. The sword pierced the Emperor's tank. Blue energy flowed into green. For a moment, everything was perfectly still. Then the explosion began. It wasn't just physical. Reality itself was rewriting. The Emperor's 1,000-year reign ended in a blast that shattered dimensions. Kyle felt the sword protecting them, creating a bubble of stability as the command ship began to tear apart. The Emperor had been the ship's heart. Without him, it was dying. Hold on, Kyle shouted. He created the largest portal he'd ever attempted. It opened directly beneath them. They fell through just as the command ship exploded. The light of its destruction could be seen from space, a second sun burning over Earth's ocean. They hit water hard. The impact knocked the wind from their lungs. But they were alive, swimming toward the surface as debris rained down from the breaking ship. Kyle held the sword high as they reached air. The blade glowed softly, almost content now that its purpose was fulfilled. Ships rose from the depths. Human submarines that had been hiding. Resistance vessels that had been standing by. They pulled survivors from the water. On shore, people watched the sky. All over Earth, the harvesting stopped. Alien ships hung, motionless. Without the Emperor's will driving them, they were directionless. One by one, the alien vessels began to withdraw, lifting up through the atmosphere, jumping to somewhere else in space. The invasion was over. Kyle sat on the deck of a submarine. Lisa bandaged his wounds. James and Ryan sat nearby, exhausted, but smiling. What now? Ryan asked. Kyle looked at the sword. Its power had faded to a gentle glow. Now we rebuild, and we prepare. For what? James asked. For whatever comes next, Kyle said. The universe is bigger than Earth. The Varkul Empire might be broken, but there are other threats out there. General Davis approached from the submarine's bridge. His face was serious. Kyle, the sword. What do we do with it? Kyle considered. The weapon had changed him, made him stronger, faster, smarter. It had also shown him wonders and horrors from across the galaxy. We learn from it, Kyle decided. The makers didn't just give us a weapon. They gave us knowledge, technology. We use it to help Earth recover and to make friends among the stars. Months later, Earth began to heal. The resistance fighters became an army again. Cities were rebuilt using alien technology adapted for peace. The sword's power was studied by scientists who learned to replicate some of its abilities. Kyle trained a new order of guardians, humans who could wield weapons inspired by the ancient sword, not as powerful as the original, but enough to protect Earth from future threats. In a quiet ceremony, General Davis awarded medals to everyone who had fought in the final battle. When he reached Kyle, he paused. "What you did," Davis said. "You saved our species. You brought hope when we had none." Kyle accepted the medal, but his mind was elsewhere. The sword still showed him visions, other species reaching for the stars, some seeking peace, some hunting. Earth had survived its first contact with galactic civilization, but it was only the beginning. The universe was vast and filled with both wonder and danger. With the sword's guidance, humanity would face whatever came next, not as victims, not as prey, but as equals among the stars. Kyle looked up at the night sky. Earth's new defensive satellite network glittered alongside. The moon. Human ships patrolled the outer solar system. Allies from other worlds who had suffered under the Varkul were making contact. The sword pulsed gently in its case nearby. Its job was done. Earth was safe. But its story wasn't over. Like humanity itself, it was ready for whatever the galaxy had in store. The invasion had ended. The real journey was just beginning.